But anyway, we're on now. We're live. Joseph Gabriel Ilustrisimo.
Close. Ilustrisimo.
Ilustrisimo.
At least you attempted it. I had a lot of teachers before who just look at that last name. They're like, I'm not even going to try.
Well, at least they admitted to you they're not going to try. I gave it a shot, and I'm like, well, I didn't make it the first time. But either way, thank you so much for coming on. And if I didn't already explain it to you already, I'm super excited to have you here because of the energy that I've seen from you and just reading your posts and your videos and what you do for a living. Like, it's exciting stuff. It gets somebody like me motivated to see somebody doing all this cool stuff in the world and how you're reaching out to help people improve their lives in different ways that maybe many of us don't think about, or maybe in ways that other people try to profit off of to say, if you want this, you're going to have to go through this. But you're doing it in such a very organic and honest way. And I really appreciate you coming on, and I can't wait to talk about your lifestyle, what you do for a living, and then getting into some of the other things that we talked about. So thank you again for coming on, Joseph. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. I'm super excited. And it was really cool listening to some of your episodes, like the one with Sergio. He's a client of mine, also a really good friend. So it was really cool that you gave him a platform to talk about his own interests and, you know, what he's into, what his work is about. I think you do a great job of just being interested in people. And I think that's definitely a skill that a lot of us could learn from, listening and just having a curiosity about who someone is, where their life comes from, where they come from in their life as well.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. So before we get too deep into it, how about you introduce yourself to the audience, tell us what you do, and kind of sort of how you got into your profession now?
Definitely, yeah. So my name is Joseph Gabriel Ilustrisimo. I've been a personal trainer and a coach for the last 10 years. And along the way, I've also incorporated other like side hustles, things that I enjoy, which is photography, videography. I do a little bit of fitness modeling as well, which I think is funny. It's like I tell everyone, and when I'm there on the fitness modeling opportunities, I know that we're like the diversity team. It's like me and a bunch of like dark-skinned people. Yeah, so I feel honored to do that. But yeah, I think a big part about what I'm trying to do with my life is when I'm doing fitness modeling, I want people to see that, you know, as a Filipino person, to be kind of looked at in a different way that Asians aren't really looked at. So trying to inspire people in that way. And then when I think about what I want to do with personal training and coaching, I want to help people find healing and hope in their own lives. And I think that just developed over time because when I first started training, I was about 20 years old when I first became a personal trainer. And the reason why I became a personal trainer is because I wanted to start working out for myself, and I started seeing really great results super fast. And there's a quote that I love that says, "Passion emerges from mastery." So then the more I was getting really good at this skill or this way of life, I was more and more passionate about that, and I wanted to help people see the same results as well. So that's been a huge goal of mine. And then over time, just being able to develop my own thoughts about what I'm trying to do. And now my business is called Holistic Hero. And I want to make it a goal. Like, I want to make sure that people know that I'm not trying to be anyone's hero. That's not the goal at all. I actually want people to become the hero in their own story. Because if you look up what a hero is, it's just the protagonist. So I want people to be the protagonists in their own story. They have these different tools and these different ways that they can kind of reach their personal best in their own lives.
That's actually pretty cool how you were able to take that and say, how can I make this for my clients, the individual? How do I empower them to say, this isn't about trying to impress other people. This isn't about living up to the image that you're supposed to look like according to social media. This is about you becoming the best version of your own self, whatever that may be. So when you walk down the street, you feel good about what you're doing. You feel good in the place you are in life. You feel good about what you're going to do in the future. That's very... It's something that I wish that we saw more of, because a lot of this has turned into a business. How can I get more money out of you to do this? But you're like, no. This is about making you understand this is a lifelong journey. There is no end. You keep on going. And with the right mindset, you're going to be your biggest supporter or your biggest advocate, because you understand how this is about making me a better person. That's very inspiring. It's very, to be able to come up with that kind of philosophy, that's just incredible. I wish we saw more of that.
I appreciate that, man. I think if you look at, people who are living their life on like having a purpose and knowing what they want to do in the world, and they're like super clear about what that is. I think a lot of people who know their purpose, it actually comes from the pain that they have as well. So you look at your story, what have you gone through that's been a struggle? And then when you look at your past, so for me, for example, something I still struggle with is that, I'm a personal trainer and a coach, but people in my family, they're not like, oh, wow, he's doing really well. They would see that and be like, oh, he's not a nurse, or he's not like an engineer, or all these other careers that Filipino Americans choose. So then I've always struggled with that I didn't feel successful, and I didn't feel like I was happy with who I was and the life that I was living. But then I think a big part of that for me now is that since I didn't have anyone building me up and encouraging me to live the life that I want to live, I want to help other people find that for themselves. I want to help other people find their purpose, and I want to be there to believe in, someone who's just an Instagram follower or a friend or a client. No matter what relationship it is, I think you take in the pain that you experience and you try and use that pain to help and love people, and that's how you find your purpose.
So what was life growing up for you? And you grew up around here, correct?
I grew up in Sacramento.
Sacramento. Okay.
Some people claim Sacramento's the Bay, but I would never claim that.
It's close enough. Let's say it that way. So what are some of the things that you personally saw growing up that you said, maybe this is what I think is acceptable or the norm, but it doesn't sit right with me? What are some of the things that you saw that where you said, this isn't the direction I want to go? And is that related to maybe just the culture that maybe your family was brought up in, where if you don't hit these marks here, then you're not successful in our book?
Yeah, I think success is something that I've struggled with for most of my life, actually. I think maybe still working through that now. I think it's okay to have issues that you're going through and you're working through on your own. But yeah, success was something for me that was always a struggle. And I think when it started to make a difference for me, when I actually started to be okay with the decisions that I've made, because I've always known that I've wanted to work in fitness and I've wanted to help people. But I've always tried to before I became a trainer, and when I was 20, I would try and think of other things. My major wasn't even kinesiology yet. It was like biology, even though there was nothing I ever really wanted. Right. And I was working in a restaurant at one point because I wanted to make money, even though I knew that since I was 16 years old, I wanted to be a personal trainer. And then I felt like at that time, it was interesting because that was the first time I ever lost a job where I got fired. And then I was like, okay, well, now this is a sign that maybe I should go after the thing that I've always wanted to do, which is be a personal trainer and start helping people with their life decisions and all that kind of stuff. And then when I graduated college, I actually got the opportunity to do a talk at my college graduation. So I wasn't valedictorian. I will never
got up on stage though.
Yeah, I'll never take that honor. But yeah, I was able to write a speech that people liked I was in something called PhilGrad, like the Filipino graduation. And I used one quote that I used from that talk was Maya Angelou's view of success. And she says, success is liking what you do, liking how you do it. It's liking who you are, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And I felt at that moment, it was so clear to me that we have a great opportunity to redefine whatever values that we have in our lives. And I think you and I can both relate to this, that, growing up as a man, you are giving these ideas of success, these ideas of what strength means. And then if you don't take your time to redefine the values that you want to hold on to and you want to live your whole entire life around, it can be a slippery slope, because you can take these values that other people are giving you and letting that define your life instead of you redefining the way that you want to view yourself.
Is that the you're talking about that toxic masculinity thing?
Yeah, I definitely think that's something that I've gone through, specifically with, you know, life experience growing up with like my family. Specifically, my mom passed away when I was in high school. And that was like a tough time for me, where I think it was so hard, where, you know, I didn't want to handle stuff that I was going through. You know, I kind of went back to school and would act like nothing's really an issue, nothing's going on in my life. And, you know, really had a hardened heart where, you know, people would ask me, oh, dude, you're so strong. This is amazing. Like, how are you staying so strong? How are you still doing these things? And I think it was just such a painful thing that I didn't want to have to experience it. But I realized that I had to redefine a lot of things in my life with looking back in this relationship with my mom, because it was actually really hard for me to share that I loved this person who I really looked up to. I was a huge mama's boy, but I think growing up, one toxic thing that I did was I thought love was a sign of weakness. And it's interesting because my mom was in a drug-induced coma for 3 months, where she had this issue where it's very similar to COVID, actually, what people are going through now. So she had like some parasite that basically went into her lungs and kind of ate away at her lung tissue. She had really scarred lung tissue. The doctor said she wasn't going to make it from day one. And, you know, it was crazy because it was a 3-month journey, but in that time she was awake for 3 days, and that was Christmas Eve, Christmas, and the day after Christmas. And that was like a really interesting moment for me, just kind of with like my faith and spirituality. But in that time, it was still hard for me to say I love you to my mom. And, you know, after a few years after this passed, you know, after this time, my cousin would tell me like, wow, it's crazy. Like, I'll still always remember your mom's last words to me, where she said, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the person that you're becoming. You're so handsome. Like, look at all these things that you're doing. And then since it was like words of love, he was able to hold on to that for the rest of his life. And I kind of look back and I feel a lot of pain and kind of sorrow that I couldn't tell my mom, even though this was like almost basically her last days being conscious on this earth. And I couldn't say like, I love you. I couldn't say, thank you so much for everything that you've done for me. I love you so much. You know, it was a struggle.
It's an experience that, of course, none of us want to be a part of. I have a similar thing with my father when he passed away. What was it, like 11 years ago? A similar thing where, you know, it was hard to really kind of express what you're actually going through. I processed that a little differently with him because of the relationship that me and him had. So for me, like, you know, I don't know what I would do when it comes time for my mom to go down that journey. I haven't. It's one of those things that you don't want to look at right now. But going through with my father, because of the relationship that we had, I processed it in a way where a lot of people were telling me the same things they were telling you. It's like, wow, you seem very strong about this. You're not really showing the emotion, whatever. But because I had been at peace with our relationship prior to that, it was easier for me to, because his was a much slower progression. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So we kind of saw it coming. You know, it'd been going downhill for a while. One step led to another one. So I had already knew back then, okay, yeah, there's not much time left. So, you know, I remember like he died like I want to say like December 30th, 2010. And for Christmas, like a week prior to that, he always told me that he wanted a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue Label, which to him was like the best alcohol in the world. You know, as I've gotten older, I'm like, there's better things out there that I like, but to him, that was the one that he always wanted. And I always said one day I'm going to buy him a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue Label, which at the time was like $120, which I was a kid. I'm like, this is expensive. Who pays this much for alcohol? And now that's nothing compared to how some of these bottles go now. But for Christmas, I bought him that Johnny Walker Blue Label that year. And I don't know what it was that possessed me to do it that Christmas, but there was something that said, you know, I want to give him this as like something that I remember that he always wanted.
Yeah.
And I remember him opening it, and you could tell that he was really surprised that he actually got something that he'd been wanting for a long time. So we got to enjoy a shot or a drink on the rocks. And then after that, you know, it just was a pretty much a downhill thing from there. But I was more at peace because we were able to share that moment back then. So I didn't, like, I'd already come to terms with it when it actually happened.
Yeah.
But I do see where you're coming from, which is, and I've seen it a lot too. It's, and I'm not really sure if it's a cultural thing or if it's necessarily a society thing, but I definitely see where there's certain things that you're expected to do as a man. There are things you're expected to do as a woman. That's just how everybody says, you know, when you're somebody that, if you're a woman and your mom tells you, hey, you're 21, you're not married, you don't have kids yet, what's going on? That's a certain expectation that generation has of you. For us, it might be, hey, you're 25, why aren't you married? Why aren't you a doctor? Why aren't you a lawyer? Why aren't you making the big bucks? Why don't you have your home yet? And it is something that a lot of us do struggle with. A bigger thing, like what you were talking about in the beginning, is being able to be comfortable with who you are and what you actually want, and that you may be at a different pace than what your parents were, or that society tells you should be. I think it's even worse now with social media, because if you didn't know any better, like some of these young kids now, you may think that once you get out of high school, you got this big paying job, that you're gonna have all these friends, and that you're gonna look a certain way, and then reality hits you that all this stuff takes time and you have to earn it all. A lot of the people that have the image on there that they're this, you know, great, you know, God's greatest gift or whatever. It's like there's a lot of manipulation that goes on back there, whether it's paying for followers or paying for the right photographer to make them look a certain way, or just going on that one trip that was free, but it looks like you have a great life. Yeah, totally. That there's really a lot behind the scenes that you wouldn't know about if you just scrolled through the pictures. And it is something that I don't know how that's going to look in like 10 or 20 years. Like, I think me and Sebastian talked last time about the metaverse and how that's going to go. I listened to a podcast the other day with Jason Oppenheim of, do you ever watch Netflix? Yeah. He's the one that is on that Selling Sunset show down in LA. Him and his twin brother have that. And he was talking about how his vision in 20 years is that I don't even know if this was his opinion or he read this somewhere, that in like 20 years, it's going to be coming down to, you could just put a contact lens in and you're automatically in the metaverse. You're walking around and you're already in your own, you know, fantasy world.
It's kind of scary to think about, right?
It's really scary to think about. That's something that could actually happen. See what I told you about that? That's something that could actually happen in the future. And it's like, how do we get out ahead of that, where we are still teaching our children about how to have social skills? And it's a challenge when they have those devices in front of them. You seen things similar to that with the people dealing with?
Yeah, that people are so caught up into this viewpoint that they're trying. Yeah, they see other people's lives and they think that they want that, essentially, right? Yeah, so I think that I struggle with that as well. I struggle with, you know, seeing other people's lives and seeing what other people are doing on social media, Instagram. I don't really use TikTok too much. But you see someone else's life and you're like, wow, I want that. Or you see even me creating content, like being a content creator. You know, like if I spend a lot of time creating a post and then, you know, I'll look online, someone else is just doing like a simple exercise, but they're like making it look hella epic and, you know, they're getting thousands of views, and then you take your time to try and help people and you're taking hours to create this thing and it doesn't get as many views as like someone else. You know, I think that can be a huge struggle. And I definitely worry about, I have a baby sister, she's like 11 years old and she's like my favorite person. I love seeing her grow up, and, you know, it's going to be interesting to see like how her life is affected outside of Roblox. Because right now she's all in Roblox, but then when she starts going into Instagram and I don't know if there's going to be like a new thing besides like TikTok.
There'll be something coming out. There always is. So yeah, that's going to be her world now, and that's what she's going to be used to. Me and you are going to look at that like that was never. How did we get through that back in the day? Like, we had computers, and our parents thought that was just something futuristic. For sure. To us, it was normal. To them, it's going to be normal to have TikTok and whatever else is coming out. To us, it's going to be like, how do you do that?
Yeah, and I think that's when, you know, we need to start being and creating, real voices. Like, I think podcasting is a great thing because, you're able to have a full-on conversation with someone instead of just like you were saying earlier in the private talk, we were talking about, sometimes people will just go into a highlight like 15 seconds or 5 minutes about, some of the best things that are going on right now. And, the exact way that you're going to make $1 million or whatever, change your life. And it's not always about that. I think we need to have a balance of, being real. We need to have a balance of, dealing with issues that we're actually experiencing. I think at the end of the day, social media, phones, all these different things are just tools. And then we got to figure out like, how are we using it?
So with that, this brings up a good point because of the industry that you actually work in. What is the biggest challenge that you get from new clients about expectations? Do you get the vibe that some of the people that you deal with on the first time that they may show you a picture, for example, I want to look like this guy here on Instagram, he's really famous, or I want to lose all this and I have 2 months to do it. Do you ever get like unrealistic expectations up front where you have to say, okay, let's come back down to earth a little bit?
Yeah, I would say I definitely experienced that, earlier in my career, because I didn't really know what I wanted to be about, and I think now, like, if someone comes to me, they're like, all right, this guy is he's very focused on like a full balance approach instead of like, my Instagram is not going to be like just me shirtless all the time. Sometimes I'll throw up a thirst trap. But I'm not always obsessed with, image and making people look sexy. It's not like my number one goal. My number one goal is to help people find peace and healing. And, I want them to also see results and making their lives a little bit easier in terms of like nutrition and building strength and endurance and all that. But I don't have a particular focus in like, all right, I'm going to make you look like Jennifer Aniston, who's like a vampire, or,
Brad Pitt in Fight Club. Is that
Brad
a popular
Pitt
one?
in Fight Club and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I definitely want to have a little bit of that in my life. I think that's what most people want, is they want to see actual change and actual results. So I definitely want to be able to focus on that a little bit more. But for me, it's also about, how is this person feeling? Are they happy with who they are?
Right. And this time of the year it seems to happen. It happens every year. Beginning of January, everybody says, you know what? My New Year's resolution is going to be, I'm going to shed all this weight. I'm going to go back to the gym for the first time in a year. I'm going to do all these different things. And then like clockwork, most people probably about late January, early February, it's just they fall back into the routine. And it's always the same thing. The biggest one, from what I've heard of people in the fitness industry, has been, New Year's resolution, January 2nd, they're all in the gym. And then you see the progression as time goes on, that those people that were here gung-ho the first week, by the first or second week of February, it's like they just start trickling out, and then life catches up to them, whatever. What has been like, if no one has ever asked you this specifically, like, what is your biggest piece of advice on getting people to stick to that kind of New Year's goal resolution for the upcoming year? Yeah,
for sure. I think I read this book actually called The Motivation Myth, and it's been very eye-opening for me as one of those books that you kind of read and you're like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And it kind of just helps you see things in a different way. And the reason why that book was so cool for me is that, a lot of times we look at things and we're like, all right, I want to see the change now. I want this now. And I think just going on to social media and the talk about phones, like everything is so fast. And that's why I actually try and stay away from TikTok a little bit more, because
good job.
It's 15 seconds. Everything's like blasting your face, so we get so used to having things like really quick. Why do I want to look at why do I want to read a book when I can just go on Instagram? I'm going to feel so much better, and I have to do way less work of understanding things. And a big part of what the author, I think his name is Jeff Hayden, in this book was trying to talk about was that motivation is different from motivation myth. It can be difficult because if we look at inspiration, that's just a feeling. Say you go on Instagram and you see this sexy ass guy or whatever, this buff dude, he looks like a freaking Super Saiyan. And then you're like, yo, I'm trying to get my body like that. I didn't know that was humanly possible. And then you see this image and you're like, all right, I'm gonna get there, you know. And then you try out for like a few days and you're like, damn, this shit is hard. I mean, am I not?
That's fine.
Yeah, like this stuff is hard, dude.
Yep.
You know, it's difficult to go after your goals. And then I think a lot of times when we get so caught up with this is what I want, this is my dream, and holding on to the inspiration, this feeling of this dream, you know, we're not going to really have true motivation, because true motivation is like you building momentum. And that's when you're looking at, okay, maybe I'm not at the body fat that I want to be. Maybe I don't look like this person that I wanted to be like, but I'm making steps forward into becoming that person. You know, I think one of the biggest things that we need to do in order to get to the goals is we have to become the person who we want to be. And I think it's so important that when we look at whatever goal that it is, that we don't just look at it as, you know, the end result and boom, you know, that's it. That's the goal. That's all I care about. You know, I think it's so important that we just don't focus too much on the pursuit of happiness, but we focus also on the happiness in the pursuit. You know, are we enjoying the journey? Are we enjoying becoming that person? And then when we have our goals as that, having joy and excitement towards reaching that goal, you can't lose. You know, so if your goal is, all right, I'm gonna drop 7% body fat, I'm gonna look like Brad Pitt in all of his different movies, you know, if we focus so much on that, when we're not reaching that goal, it's actually gonna crush us a little bit, where we're gonna be like, oh wow, it's not even worth it.
I can't even tell you how many times I had the same thing happen, even to me. Like, I started my fitness journey probably about 18 years old when I said, okay, I got to start going to the gym. I got to start eating better, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And that was 20 years ago. And it's still a lifelong, long journey. It got me probably about 10 years ago. I said, you know what? Going to the gym, eating better, it's just a way of life. Like, it just becomes something where when you go out and you work out, it's not about, okay, I'm going to get another 10 pounds on my bicep curl, or did I get it that extra 3 inches over there? Yeah, because I'm supposed to. No, it's like you go in, you enjoy it. It's a de-stressor, and the results come when they finally show up. It's not going to be something where I can say I'm going to have to do this, and the third in order to get a certain look by Halloween or by my birthday. Like, it doesn't work that way. And that's been a big frustration too. I'm sure you see it a lot, just from all the personal trainers that I've met. It's been like, just, I put so much work into some clients, and then when they see how long of how much investment it takes, you know, reality sets in. Do you have the time for all that? Can you make this a way of life? Or is this just something that you want to check box off and then get those pictures and then never do it again? It's like, it's going to come back eventually. Like, your body's got that weird way of keeping itself in check that, you know, if you go too extreme, which is another thing that I didn't know about until I actually started reading up on it. But like, if you really think about all the people who have the physiques that you enjoy, like, you know, superheroes in Marvel movies or whatnot, it's like, you realize that they have personal trainers. They're getting paid to work out every day. Somebody's making their meals. Like, there is no room to really cheat. Like, they're making sure you look a certain way because they have a lot of money invested in you to be in this movie. Whereas everyday people, you know, we got to go to work. I got to come home. I got to cook. Then I got to clean up. Then I got to meal prep for the next day. And that's a lot of time and investment. So when people understand that, it says, oh yeah, that's why so-and-so can look like this in 3 months, because of all that they have access to, that I don't, because, you know, I have a life. I got, whether you're married and you got kids, or you got to commute and you got to go to work and deal with all that. It's a lot that people have to understand, that that's reality for most of us.
Definitely.
So, you know, if you're in a position where you can be paid to work out every day, then you're going to have a result that some people think that's normal. And it's like, hey, this is a 7 days a week, 3 or 4 hours a day. I'm working out. You know, that's my job. That's what I get paid for. You know, being in an office every day, that's what you get paid to survive. But, you know, it's going to sacrifice time that you're going to be able to spend in it. So it's always something that I try to get people to understand it. But it's like, sometimes it's like talking to a wall.
Yeah.
A frustration I'm sure that you've seen at some point in your career, because you work at this, what I understand to be pretty much the best personal training gym in the city. What's it called? DIAKADI or DIAKADI?
Yeah, so it's DIAKADI, and
DIAKADI,
it's actually,
okay.
Yeah, it's what is it called? Like an acronym or whatever, when you kind of like create these different letters mean a certain thing. I don't know. I'm blanking.
I
on
don't
that.
know what that
Yeah,
is.
but basically it means do it all, kick ass doing it.
Oh, gotcha. I know what it is. I don't know the phrase that you're talking about, what that means.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what is it that people say is so inspiring about that place? Is it all the trainers there? Is it the equipment that you have? Is it the schedules that you guys do? How does that whole thing work? Because I've been wanting to try it for a while because I hear so much about it.
Oh, really? Yeah. I think it's a great space, and I think you know, it's tricky because you can go to a gym and you can see like really amazing results, right? But then do you want to stay there? You know, say if I go to Fitness SF and, you know, I go on a program and I'm like getting freaking super jacked and building strength everywhere, you know, would I want to stay in that place? It's not really clear. I think what keeps you in a place is that you feel at home. You know, you feel like security, you feel that people care for you. I think same thing with a job. You know, if you are working in the corporate world, what's going to keep you is not, maybe sometimes money will keep you, but like, are they creating a culture and an environment that you know that you're cared for? And I think Simon Sinek talks about that a lot, is like knowing that you're cared for in a place that you're at. And I think for me, just going about where I didn't really have a lot of support from family when it came to my career and what I wanted to accomplish. I actually was already in the fitness industry for 8 years, and I did an unpaid internship to learn from Billy Polson, who is one of the owners of DIAKADI, he and his husband Mike. And I did an unpaid internship for like 8 weeks on just trying to learn how to build a fitness business and to take my career to the next level. And in that time, I really realized that, yeah, he helped me so much, but he actually became a really good father figure for me as well. So he was the first person to actually let me know that I have potential, and to let me know that, wow, like you can do it. You can be successful in building a career. And I think I would always come to him with all these other ideas that I wanted to do with my life, you know, all these other jobs, all these other options, all these other plan Bs. And then one day he just stopped me when we were in our meeting. He's like, where's all this coming from? Where is all this self-doubt coming from? And I told him, you know, I have these talks with my family and they don't really believe in what I do and what I have to offer. And that was tough for me, but just going to Billy and him believing in who I was, believing in what I could accomplish, it really changed my life. You know, I think a lot of us, we don't really have a lot of, I think it's great when someone has a strong father figure, but I've come to know that like a lot of times we don't really have, you know, positive male role models in our lives. And I think I have a great, much better relationship with my dad now than it was in the past, but still struggling through, you know, having someone be like, you're doing a good job, you're doing a good work, you know, I'm proud of you. And I think a lot of us, we long for that. We long for that father figure. We long for that person to kind of be a mentor for us. And yeah, I needed that in Billy.
That's what I was going to ask you, and I forgot about it, but was how active was your father in your life? Was it something that he was far away, or just you guys just didn't see eye to eye with how life should be? And how's that sort of changed as time has gone on?
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, you hear a lot about how Asian parents are very strict and they want you to do, like, they want you to have the best grades and all that kind of stuff. And
I've heard that.
Yeah,
times.
They call it tiger moms. You know, we have like a lot of tiger moms where Asian moms are really, really strict. And then what I've realized in my life is that, you know, I went to a Catholic private school called Jesuit High School in Carmichael, Sacramento. And we did a freshman retreat. And in that freshman retreat, you actually get a letter from your parents and, you know, other people in your life. So my older brother wrote me a letter as well. And, yeah, some of the older high school people at the time were able to write me a letter. And then I got a letter from my parents. And then the letter was just like, wow, we're surprised that you got in. You know, we knew that your brother was going to make it, but we didn't know about you. We were worried that you wouldn't get into the school. So like just growing up, I didn't have anyone believing in me at all, you know? So that was tough. And then after my mom passed away, you know, looking back, I realized that, you know, it must have been really hard for my dad as well because he lost his wife and, you know, he had to learn how to take care of, two boys. And I think that would be a major struggle for anybody. And I look at, the past when, we would get on all these fights. We got in a lot of fights before, and it was like really a tough, tumultuous relationship at times, where I just needed some support. I just needed some love. And I think he just didn't know how to provide that for me. And I think one thing that's actually really helped me in my relationship with my dad, or two things actually, is me journaling about this. And, I listened to this guy named Rob Dial, and he has an exercise called going 7 layers deep into a question. So then you start with like an initial question. And this was like 2 years ago when I wanted to change my business. And why did I want to go that route was the next question. And kind of like got to the point where I kept on asking myself these questions, like, why do I not feel successful? And that's why I wanted to make more money and do all these things. And, I think in this time I was just really longing for, my dad. I was trying to work to prove him wrong. Like, I can be successful, and, you're going to watch me. Mm-hmm. And then I was motivated by that. I was moved by like this almost anger of wanting to prove someone wrong. And then I realized after journaling, I just wanted him to be proud of me, and I think that was something really changing for me, because instead of being moved by, anger and trying to prove someone wrong, I was like, man, I just want him to be happy with who I am, happy with the choices that I've made. And then the second thing that really helped our relationship too was I was driving in the car with him. It's the one time that, we were alone, because usually it's like, I have a stepmom and I have a baby sister, of course. I have a brother. So a lot of times when we are together, I don't really get time with just my dad alone. So something that I struggled with. I never really had a talk with my dad. And then in this drive, we were driving, it was around Christmas time, and I started asking him about what he was going through when my mom was passing away. And he was like, I asked him how he was feeling, and he was like, yeah, of course I was like sad. Of course I was dealing with my own issues, and, I wasn't able to show you that. And I think that's one thing that pains me about us as men. And, I think you might see a lot of similarities with, Filipino dads or, Latin dads or whatever it is. A lot of times dads struggle with, sharing how they feel, and they don't feel like they can talk about that. And sometimes that's what we need. So I just knew that for him, he was going through his own situation. He was going through his own struggle, and it helped me see him in a different way.
That's really impactful there, because what you just said is really, it's just unfortunate that it's so common that way. Mm-hmm. Because what I've seen over like my grandparents' a generation, and matter of fact, I only had one grandparent that I was old enough to remember. Everybody else had passed on. But when I've seen the change from him to my parents' generation to our generation, because we become so much more integrated, and I guess the term would be egalitarian, a little bit more equal, you're starting to see how it's improving all of us as a whole, because we need to understand different things to make us successful. Back in the day, it was pretty much, if you're the guy, you get married, you go out, you work, you bring home the bacon, that's pretty much it. And then you go, my grandfather, the one I didn't meet, he had this, how he would cope with his issues would be he would come home and then immediately would just go down the basement, and he would just stay there for a couple of days, doing whatever, drinking. I don't know what he was doing.
No one knows.
Yeah. And then he would come out and then go to work. And then when he would come home, passing by his wife and all the kids, he'd just go straight down the basement. Dang. And what my mom had told me was sort of the way that he coped with, he never took it out on the children, but the relationship he had with his wife, or my grandmother, was just, we're married, I'm doing my part, here's the money, take care of the kids, I'm going to go over here, because that's just how he coped with everything. And back then it was just, that's what everybody did, so nobody said anything. As time has gone on, you've seen the effects of it. It's like, there are things that we need to work on, because it's not healthy for us to just grow as people, which is why I think it's really good when you can get out of that environment a little bit and say, okay, I need to go hang out with the guys. I need to go hang out with some friends to kind of get some understanding of what's going on. And when you go home to your family, work on building that relationship there, because it does take two people, especially over here in the Bay Area, which is so expensive to live here. And I've said that many times on this show. It's so expensive to live here that you both have to have full-time jobs. So coming home and you're both tired and you both have to take care of the kids and the house and everything, there's just little time for you guys to work on your own relationship, which leads to a lot of divorces around here. And I've seen that plenty of times.
For sure.
And it's when your kids see that, because they don't know any better, it sticks with them. How do we know? Well, that's how mom and dad did it. So is that how it's supposed to be? For better or for worse. And it's something that I've seen progressions in the right direction, but a lot of the older generation, they're set in their ways. They have their own way of doing things. And, in a way, who am I to tell them otherwise? You have to work on your own thing. But going forward, I see that more of a change that I think that you were talking about, where people are more open to actually say, this is what I actually need. And this is what I need to actually do. It's a situation that I work on with my wife all the time. Here's what I need. Here's what I have to do. Yeah. But I have to balance career with the relationship, with everything else that I have going on in my life. How do I balance all that? Something that I work on and I learn, and the only way that I can get through it is with communication with her, so she knows what's going through my head. And most of the time I kind of don't want to say anything. I'm like, I got it, don't worry about me, leave me alone. But if I don't say it, then that's when it comes out. How come you never told me? Like, you know what, I need to do better at that. Yeah. But it is difficult. And you mentioned like father figures. It's something that I see a lot in underprivileged communities where there's no father figures, or very few. Young boys grow up and it's, what do? You have to survive. You have to be part of the group. So you end up joining a gang more of the times than not. You end up doing stupid stuff, like we see these freeway shootings over here.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Committed by, surprisingly, a lot of times that we see is young kids, 12, 13, 14 years old. They're out there doing this kind of stuff. No leadership in the home. The mom's probably working 2 jobs to try to make ends meet, and there's nobody there to keep them in check. And then they end up going with the group. Yeah. And it's a problem to say, how do you actually fix that? And, it's difficult, not easy, but I definitely see where you're coming from there. And that example there, they've taken it to the route where they're using violence to sort of survive. And like your area there, it's like being able to communicate and talk with your significant other, with your partner, with your father, is actually something that you really wanted. And it's hard to say how we can actually solve that, other than being able to say, here's what we're actually seeing out there.
I think it starts by making it a choice. I think you are so spot on that like one of the number one things that we really need right now is we need to be able to learn how to communicate. And I actually put a story up today. I call it like a double negative almost, that when you get a no, you can kind of just reject that as well. So like I think a lot of times with us, we are so afraid of asking for what we want. We're so afraid of asking for what we want, or who we want to like be with or whatever. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of failure, and sometimes even we see it with our relationships, our intimate relationships, like, oh, I don't want to have this conversation with this person because I think that they might get mad, or they might think that I might burden them in some way. But, communication is like one of the number one things that you need in any relationship. And I think a lot of times we struggle with, talking about what is it that we want, and I think it's interesting because I've heard on podcasts before that, some of the people who are most successful in their lives are actually Mormons. The reason why is because they're so not afraid of rejection. They're so not afraid of being told no.
Because they're knocking on doors all the time?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, so they're knocking on doors every single day, and they're like, can we tell you about, our religion? And then they get told no, like hundreds of times a day probably. And then they still go, all right, it's okay. Next door. I think that's something that we struggle with, is that we get so caught up with, this fantasy of what we want life to be like. Life is going to be perfect. I'm going to, make these choices, and I'm going to see the results that I want. I'm going to make these choices. I'm going to be with the person that I want to be with, instead of just going through like, all right, maybe it doesn't work out, but you still learn, you still grow. Whenever you want to ask for something, say, I want to ask for a raise, or I want to ask this client that, all right, I want to be your coach, I want to be your trainer. If you don't make that ask, then you're not going to ever get there.
So a lot of us have learned in life is exactly that, is that you got to be able to go out and ask for what you want, or more importantly, for what I've seen, is you got to go out and work to make and get what you actually want, because it will not come to you, which is a big thing that I've seen. People just assume that things are going to come to them because I have the degree, so therefore I get a 6-figure job.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't work that way. You got to go out, especially in the competition now, you really got to work harder to get what you want, get yourself noticed, and be realistic on your time frame.
Yeah.
Things will not come in the first year or two. It's going to take a long time.
Definitely.
Like I told you, I'm 38 years old. I still haven't accomplished everything that I wanted to do by the time I was 30. I'm still working on it. Life gets in the way. Things take time, and it's good to be able to make sure people understand that, especially now when we're dealing with social media and everything, that it's right now. We have to get instant gratification.
Got it. Yeah.
Whole big thing to actually try and overcome there.
For sure.
But getting back to your business, because I really wanted to talk about this. So you focus on, I guess, holistic healing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I definitely. I want people to enjoy their lives better. I want people to be happy with who they are.
So sorry about that. So what is the biggest piece of advice that you tell people about being happy? Because that's the question that everybody always says. I just want to be happy. I just want to feel good. I want to accomplish all these things. And some people, like myself personally, like happiness is great and all, but sometimes there are things that you have to do where it may not make you happy, but it's part of life and you have to adjust to it. So how do you really balance telling people how to make themselves happy while also understanding that there's going to be things that you have to do to get there that may not make you as happy, like working out really to the T, almost like 9 out of 10. No one's happy, or very few people are happy unless you have like some sort of sadistic mindset about going that hard, that intense, and just pumping the weights. But afterwards, when you start feeling good and you see the results, that's where you get the happiness from. But in the meantime, it's a fight to get to that point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man, I think happiness is it's like a thing that people should do more studies on. I think one book that I like a lot is called The Happiness Advantage. By Sean Acor, I believe, is the author. But one thing I'm really learning about happiness is that, happiness it's only really found in the present moment. I think a lot of times we think about most of our time we're spending, like a lot of people who do meditation, they say this, is that, you actually spend a lot of your day worrying about the future, having anxiety about the future, and then also looking back at your past mistakes and being upset at what you did in the past. So I think it's so important to understand that peace is only found in the present moment. And I think what we all have to come to realize is, just like how everyone has their own purpose, everyone has their own passion, you have to realize, what is that thing that helps you become mindful and helps you be in this present state? Because I think mindfulness is basically just presence. It's just being present in the moment. And then for me, I love working out. I love being able to, I'm not pushing myself like we're talking about. I'm not about to throw up and go crazy with every single workout that I'm doing. I'm pushing it, yeah. But, with me, working out is such a meditative thing, where I used to do deadlifts like crazy, and then I'd be driving on the street and I'd be going 15 miles underneath the speed limit because I was just so calm. And I think a lot of us, we got to realize, some people it's walking your dog, and that's going to be your mindful moment where you're like, all right, I'm so present right now. Some people it's going to be playing with your kids, getting more time doing those things. And I think a lot of times we're unhappy because things are out of our control. We need to have a locus of control, that even if it's just one thing. That's why routines and morning routines, like being able to have a gratitude practice, a lot of people talk about in the mornings, or being able to have a journaling practice at night. Those things are so important because it gives us control in our lives. And I think one thing that we have to have control over is we got to take that time for ourselves. What does that time look like for you? I used to teach these group classes, and then everyone would be like, oh my God, like these moms, like, oh my God, I love you. Like, thank you so much. Like, this is my time. That's for me, because I'm not with my kids. And we got to figure out, what is that for you? What is, and like the same way we're trying to build whatever future that we want to create, we also got to realize, what makes you happy? What brings you joy?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and this is also something that I think Jordan B. Peterson wrote in one of his books, was don't compare yourself to everybody else. Compare yourself to what you or who you were yesterday, last week, last month. Are you getting better? And if you're getting better in whatever aspect it is, ultimately that's going to lead you down the happiness path, probably the best way possible. Because if you keep putting someone in front of you who has something that you don't, then it's always going to be the negative side of it. Like you said, it's always going to be, he has more money than me. Therefore, I need to get to that point. And you just focus on that, as opposed to, you know what, I'm actually doing pretty damn good for myself compared to where I was 5 years ago financially. Looking at it that way, glasses half full versus the glasses half empty. And how much just that simple change can actually make a difference in terms of how your overall feeling of wellness is. And I gotta tell you, again, going back to like social media, how many people just are unhappy because they keep comparing themselves to who has 20 million followers, who looks a certain way, or that not realizing that it's Photoshop probably, who has the right image. And it's,
I think you're definitely right on all that. I think one thing that you said that really stuck out to me too is like, just knowing that you're on the right track. I think one thing that's so important about your goal setting, whatever it is, just like understanding that, you're making progressions forward, which is, I think, what Jordan B. Peterson is talking about. He's talking about growth. And, at the end of the day, I think that's a human need, is that we're all looking for ways that we are growing, whether that's financially, in our career, in our relationships. We all need to find ways that we are growing. And I think that's why, like, when I help people in the gym, they're building muscle or whatever, they're getting stronger. It's just one of those places where they're like, oh, like I'm doing better, and I think we need to look at our own lives and being like, looking for ways to be happy about who we are. I think a lot of times we're looking at the world and we're like, man, the world is so negative, right? We're going to basically find whatever we look for. So are we looking for reasons to not trust people? Are we looking for reasons to be hurt by other people around us? Or are we looking for reasons to be happy with the person that we're becoming? Are we looking for reasons to see our life as that we aren't who we were yesterday? We are getting better at these things that we're working on. We're getting stronger. We're finding more peace, finding more joy. We need to really look at all the ways that we're progressing and hacking our brain in that way that we are looking for that. We have to look for it.
Well, it's pretty cool that we're both on the same page in terms of some of the books that we read between Simon Sinek and then Jordan B. Peterson. So inspirational people that kind of, when you really think about what they say, it actually makes pretty good sense.
Yeah.
I want to talk about now how you got to this game show that I still haven't even seen yet because it's on Peacock. So Frogger, how did you get there? And tell me about that experience, because it looks pretty fun from the pictures that you posted.
Yeah. It was a great experience. So
but what is that? Is it like American Ninja, or what's that Ninja Warrior show?
It's like a goofy American Ninja Warrior. So it's like a mixture between American Ninja Warrior as well as, have you seen The Floor is Lava on Netflix?
No.
Okay.
But I will now. No.
Yeah. So Floor is Lava is basically this thing where it's like you're a team or whatever, then you're going through these weird challenges and people are failing, and it's funny. It's funny to watch like these random people, like a mom with her 2 kids going on the show. American Ninja Warrior is like super extreme, where it's like these extreme athletes that train their whole entire lives to be ninjas, and they're doing this obstacle course. So with Frogger, it's actually somewhere in between. And it's funny because I got asked to, someone reached out to me on Instagram, and they're like, all right, we think you'd be great on this show. And then I denied them at first because I was like, nah, like I tried out for this one show before that, and I was horrible at auditioning. I thought I was like embarrassed after. And then after that, I didn't respond to them. And then I didn't respond to the people who reached out to me on Instagram about the show. And then, a few weeks passed and then someone else reached out to me, and then they're like, all right, I think that was a sign. I think a lot of times we got to look at signs of the universe or whatever is controlling this whole entire world, just whatever we believe in. We got to look at signs and follow those. And I thought that was a sign. Wow. So
where was that filmed at?
It was in Australia. So they basically flew us out to Australia. And it was this time where, it was a lot of waiting. It's a lot of waiting and being like, all right, let's do this. So yeah, I had to audition. I created like this video and someone helped me out with that. And then over time, they liked me a lot. They liked my skill set, what I brought to the table. I was like dressed up in this frog onesie, and I was like doing all these like capoeira flips and stuff in this like frog onesie. And then I started training for it, and I started like trying to do some tricking classes, and I ended up hurting my knee like super bad. Like I basically was running, and I did a front flip into this pit, and everything beneath my leg just crumbled. Like I sprained my knee, I sprained my ankle, and I was in the process of doing my yoga teacher training, and I couldn't even like teach classes with them anymore. It was bad. Like I could barely walk. Wow. And then after that, they're like, all right, they finally sent me an email back, and they're like, all right, can you create your fitness exam or whatever, your fitness assessment, where I had to rest up for a few weeks, and then like 2 or 3 weeks after, I basically created this fitness assessment. And I was going through the process of trying to get on the show. And then, I was able to finally make it out to Australia. I was super scared at first because I had to leave everything for, 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. I was really scared of, coming back and, what is my personal training business going to be like? I was in the process of doing a lot of like photo shoots with fitness people. I do photography and videography, and I was building a lot of momentum in that area of my life. And I had to drop everything. I had to realize that I would have to drop everything for up to 6 weeks in order to be on this game show and win whatever the prize was. We didn't know at the time, but the prize was like $10,000 per your episode if you win your episode, and $100,000 if you win the whole thing. And
okay.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I mean, it's a decent amount of money, but I was actually losing money for just being there.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, they put you up in the hotel and paid for your flight at least, right?
They pay for everything. Yeah, so they pay for everything, and I think it was really scary for me to have to drop everything, but I made an intention to have a value at the beginning of the year, and that value was that I wanted to really work on building courage. And I think courage can look a lot of different ways for people. It can be super small. Like sometimes I get scared, like, oh, I'm gonna reach out to this girl who I think is so beautiful. I'll get scared of that. Like, oh, what if they don't say anything, And then, I think that takes courage, actually. So I think if you value courage, then you're going to end up doing the thing. And then, same thing with the big stuff, like dropping everything for 6 weeks and going to Australia. I thought it took a lot of courage for me to do that. And if I didn't, just holding on to that value at the beginning of the year, I think that's what really propelled me to actually saying yes and being a part of the opportunity.
Well, in terms of asking somebody out and whatnot, if you just keep telling yourself, what's the worst they're going to tell me? No. Yeah. And then move on from there. Like, oh, that's that simple. What's the worst they're going to tell me?
Yeah.
Now, I haven't seen it yet, but what season and what episode number were you? Or it's season, right? Yeah,
so I can tell you about it. So basically...
well, don't spoil it for the audience because they still have to go watch it. But what season was it?
It was actually the first season. So
season
that's
one,
why
okay.
I was there for a longer period, is because like it was kind of unorganized with the stuff that we were going through. But yeah, man.
Did you have success without saying if you won or whatnot? Did you have success in the show?
I kind of want to just say how it went.
If you want to, but then if you do that, they're not going to go watch it.
I mean, people will still watch it, I think, because it didn't, as a show, it actually didn't grow to, I think, what they wanted it to be.
Oh, okay, fair
so
enough.
I think a lot of people actually didn't end up watching it, so you're not alone in that.
Well, then why not? Then go have at it.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because, what they do is you go 1v1 versus, some person, someone else. And I actually went against this girl who's from the Bay Area, the girl named Melita. She's awesome, amazing. But yeah, I think I did super horrible in that first run. And then after that, I was like, all right, I need to redeem myself. And they made it seem like it's like one episode after. But I had to redeem myself because I'm super competitive and I want to do well. So I started training. I started training for weeks on like jumping over obstacles, and I didn't know what to expect to be on this show. And yeah, I made it onto the quarterfinals, which is like the finals of your episode. And if you watch it, it's a very close and intense race. And being on that show, I came to realize that, you can be delayed by your own fears in your own life by just a few seconds, and you could completely fail. Because I got on the show, and in this last race, I was basically killing it. Like it sounds so stupid saying this, but you have to collect 5 frog babies. You have to collect 5 frog babies on this show. And it's kind of like Legends of the Hidden Temple.
I remember that. I remember that show.
Yeah, where you're just running all over the place, and I had to climb a pyramid. I had to climb this helicopter pad and like basically take a zip line helicopter ride. And then the way that they did it was like, you have 5 minutes. If you go into the water, if you saved how many babies, because you have to take these frog babies, you have to put them in this like crate essentially. Mm-hmm. And then that's how you know that you saved a baby, when they're like secure and all that. It's funny. It's super funny talking about it. But I saved 2 frog babies, and I went second. And I knew the route that I was going to take, and I saved 2 frog babies. And then there was one point where you have to jump on this hippo that's kind of moving around in the water. And I had to jump onto this hippo. And the first time I made it on, I actually didn't think I was going to make it. I didn't think I was going to make it on top of the hippo. So I delayed myself when I landed, and I landed on top of this hippo. I delayed myself, and I was like, oh, shit, I made it. And then I ended up having to ride the hippo around and jump off onto a lily pad and climb up this helipad and all that. And then the second time around, I had to jump on this waterfall. And then I was like in front of this waterfall, and I was like, damn, I don't know if I can make this thing, because you had to jump like 3 or 4 feet onto like this waterfall that has like gallons of water just going down at a time. And you can barely see where you're supposed to land on your hands and all that. But then I was waiting for, all these seconds passing by, and I didn't think I was going to make it. And then I did, and I was like, holy shit, like I should have just gone for it with all these different things. But throughout this whole entire course, I was looking at every obstacle like, I'm not going to land on my feet. And I think that's when you start building faith, Like, I think a lot of times we have to look at the leaps of faith that we need to take in our lives. And we got to realize that, whatever jump that you have to take, if you have to run, you have to climb, whatever you have to do, I have a belief in God. So I just believe that God's going to help me land on my feet. And whatever you believe in, if that is, like the universe or any, like a higher power, or just even trust, like I think we gotta trust in something greater than ourselves sometimes. And if you watch the episode, it was actually the closest race that was on the episode where, I didn't lose to anybody. I saved 2 frogs. I had 2 more in my hands, but I ran out of time by 1 second, less than a second.
Really?
So I lost $10,000 in less than a second because I delayed myself. And I don't want anyone to go about their life delaying themselves,
Oh man. You know how many people, if you told them that you were 1 second away from $10,000, how much they would just lose their minds?
Yeah.
And you take that and you put a positive spin on it. Like, well, I missed the 10 grand by 1 second.
Yeah.
Come on. It's got to eat at you just a little bit.
Oh, dude, I'm so competitive, bro. Whenever people talk about that show, I'm just like, fuck. I should have won that. Every single time that show comes up, it still eats at me. But then it's funny because I remember listening to your other talk with Sergio. You guys were talking about like video games and like Final Fantasy. I think one thing that I started doing when I was on this trip was I started watching a bunch of anime. So whatever was on Netflix, I started watching all these different TV shows. I'm like really into Naruto right now, which is so old. But one show that I started watching, my friend recommended it to me, and it was called, I think, Record of Ragnarok. And it was about this interesting premise where these gods, the strongest gods, are fighting the strongest men, but the men have help of these like half god, like mythical creature things. And then, you're kind of following their story, and the men, like what the premise is about is that the gods see Earth and mankind as just horrible. They're just destroying their own world, and they want to destroy Earth. So they have to win these battles basically to 8 victories. Whoever gets 8 victories first, I think, they get to continue. Like if the gods win, they can destroy Earth and mankind. And if the men win, they can kind of continue living their lives. And then the men are just losing every single battle. And then there's this one guy who, I don't even remember who he was. He was like the samurai. And then he's lost every single battle that he's ever been in. So he's lost everything. And then they're like, this is like everyone's watching, like all the men that have died or whatever, and the females that have died, like all these people are watching, like this is the guy you're sending out, the guy who calls himself the greatest loser. And then he ends up fighting, his enemy was someone pretty small, Poseidon, the god of the sea and wrath. And you put this guy up against him who's a samurai, and he's lost every single battle. But then in the most important battle of his life he had to ever be in, he won. And I think the thing that's so cool about that is he looked at every lesson that he's learned, everything that he's ever experienced, all the losses have taught him something. And he learned how to take his losses and learn and grow and be better. And I think that's a mindset that I wanted to go about, that I want to be a really great loser. I want to be someone who's so willing to go at any challenge that comes in front of him. And if he loses, then he learns along the way. I think we should go after the things that we want to. And I don't want to, one of my favorite books is this book called The Last Arrow by this author named Erwin McManus. And what he keeps talking about in this book is about, leaving life with your quiver empty. Knowing that you give every single bit of your energy, every single bit of your love, your compassion, your energy towards creating this life. And I think we have to go after that. We can't be afraid of losing if we want the most out of our lives.
Still, though, 1 second that would just eat me up right there.
It kills me. It kills me.
But I like that positive spin, though, because you're right. A lot of us don't know how to lose. If the first time we lose and we lose our minds because of it and think the world's against us, like, well, then you're not, it's like watching the NBA finals or something like that. You kind of have to, you can't win every game. You have to know that when you lose, that there's a flaw in the way you do things. You have to learn how to fix it so you can give effort next time. Yeah. And then when someone challenges you again and you lose, okay, what can I improve on there? Yeah. Look at it as, well, I messed that one up, so now I know what to fix for next time. Because if you just keep winning, then you don't grow anymore. Or if you keep getting things that have been given to you, you don't know how to appreciate it. And where does that lead you on down the line when you hit a wall where it's, how do I get through this? Well, I never learned because I was winning my whole life, and now my first time losing is when I'm 40, and I have no clue how to get through this.
Yeah, it'll break you at that point, right?
It's unbelievable. I see that with people who have been given a lot in life, growing up through no fault of their parents or society. They've been given things, and then they hit that one speed bump and they don't know what to do. They freak out. Yeah. Because they never, who do I call? What do I do when the money runs out? Yeah. What do I do when so-and-so who's been telling me what to do this whole time is no longer here?
Definitely.
Good point on learning how to lose. It sounds bad, but no, it's actually, I need to learn how to get better.
Yeah. I think it goes a lot with like our approach towards life. I think a lot of times we gotta like accept that life is gonna be hard sometimes. I look at the things that I've gone through with my mom passing away, and I realize that that's actually helped me out so much in my life too. like having to go through really tough moments. Like you grow a lot from those things. And I think a lot of times we wake up and we're like, God, like, or, you know, if I'm a Christian person and a faith person, I'm like, God, like, make my life easy. You know, give me the easy things. I want success, you know? And I think sometimes in my life, like, I think about my relationship with God, and, you know, I want to also, like, do things the hard way too, you know, because if you are taking things, you know, the hard way, you're actually growing maybe even a lot more through the challenges and through the tough moments. You know, I'm in the process right now of trying to, like, raise money for the victims of the typhoon that hit the Philippines.
I saw that on your Instagram thing. When did that happen again, that typhoon?
Yeah, it was, I think, around like the holidays, so like December. Jeez. And it's just cause I'm not too sure about the exact date. I think it's something that sucks that, you know, if it's not in front of you all the time, you're not going to really pay attention to it. You know, there could be some crazy situation going on in the third world country, and then we have no idea, and it doesn't really bother us, you know?
That goes down a whole nother rabbit hole about how what we see every day with everything going on here, that's taking center stage. And because it's taking center stage so much, I had no clue that even happened.
Yeah.
Weeks ago, probably. Like, that's how bad we've come with what's in front of our faces all the time.
Definitely.
With media and whatnot. But going back to that, how devastating was that? Yeah,
so I basically looked it up, and then they put there's some charts that say that it's cost like $40 trillion worth, 40 trillion pesos worth of damage to the island of Surigao. But, you know, and if you put that in terms of dollars, it's like $400 million worth of damage. So not saying that, right, like the immediate damage to like the buildings and all that, that's not going to lead to $400 million worth, but it's everything like over time, you know, all the damage that it's doing on their main income sources, which is like fishing, tourism.
Jeez.
Yeah. Like hospitality, like it's basically destroyed all of that. So over time, it's like $400 million worth of damage, which is a lot. If you think about like what we go through in San Francisco of having to do that, like think about like a third world country that they don't even have a lot of people coming in right now too, you know? So it's been a devastating thing. And I think for me, what I'm learning is like, you know, I want to like raise a lot of money for this. And I think it's hard. It's hard to do that. And I think it's important to like want to seek challenges, seek things that are going to scare you, because that's the only way you can figure out how strong you are, or, you know, how much you've grown. And, you know, it's about dreaming big enough that, you know, you need something, you need help from other people, you need help from an idea that's bigger than you.
Do you have a family personally who's been affected by it?
No, I don't. But I think something that I have grown to, like, kind of grown into over time is like I really care about, you know, my people, I guess the Filipino people. Like, I think a lot of us, I don't know if you can relate to this, but a lot of Filipinos that I'm like hearing about now, it's like we really struggle to pass on, you know, traditions and language to a lot of the kids that, you know, the kids are growing up being, you know, 30 years old, 40 years old. They're trying to figure out more about, you know, what is the Philippines like? You know, what's the language? What are the traditions? How are the people? And I think what I've come to realize in this life is that, you know, like $1,000 to us might not look like a lot, but then $1,000 to someone who needs it in a third world country, that's huge. You know, even I did these like yoga events with this food truck company called Srop Shop, which is like one of my favorite food trucks in the Mission Bay area. And we did something where, you know, we're trying to raise money for this nonprofit coffee shop. I think it's called like 1951 Coffee. And they basically allow refugees to come in, and, you know, they give them an opportunity to create a life and build a career in the coffee business. But then we were raising money, and then we got like a match from a donor. And then we raised like $560 on our own, and then the person was able to match that. So we raised like over $1,000. And then when we were able to give this money to this, the boss of the nonprofit, he was like, wow, thank you so much. This came at such a perfect time. You know, we just got this new person in from, I forgot where they're from, but they're a refugee, and they were able to like really bless this person and help them kind of start their career in that way. You know, so I think a lot of times we got to continue realizing that our money can go a long way, especially if it's in another country.
Well, yeah, we really forget, especially where we live out here, just how much, you know, we look at it like, oh, that house cost $2 million, and we're just so numb to it. And then, you know, $100,000 to somebody who lives in the Philippines is like, you know, the life that they could make for their family if they had that much money.
They'd be good for years.
Exactly. That's very inspiring there too. So is this run through an organization, or is this your own finance that you're gonna like donate a check to? How's that work?
Yeah, the money's actually going to a Nigerian prince. No, just kidding. It's not like some scam like that. You see that all the time. But
sometimes you can't believe some of those things, and they look so honest and legit, and then nope, that's just a scammer the whole time.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to find the right nonprofit to donate to, and I have one friend who she has a nonprofit business in the Philippines. Then they don't actually do direct work with the people who are the victims of the typhoon, but she made a post about other people who are. And then some guy that I'm also connected with, he was doing some fundraising for them as well. He was selling some of his photography, some prints that he's created. And then he basically like named off the nonprofits that he was going to use, and I saw one that was familiar from the post my friend made. So just like seeing those kind of line up together, I was like, all right, this seems like the right choice to make. And they're called Local Lab in Surigao. And then I think what they're doing is so cool, where they're trying to provide immediate relief, so taking care of damage and everything that would be like immediate, like resources, food, all that. But they're also trying to build a more sustainable future for they have different plans set out for how to make sure that this, if it happens again, that we're going to be prepared, or, you know, building careers for these people that they can kind of get back on their feet too. Right.
That makes sense. And is this something that do you have a time frame on? Is it you're asking for the donations, or is there like a fundraising thing, like with the food trucks? Is there something that you got going on with that?
Yeah, so I was thinking about it because it was something on my heart to try and raise like a lot of money, which is like $5,000, which I guess it's not a lot to some people, but for trying to raise that, for me, it seems like a really big thing. And, you know, just kind of looking at it like, if I donate 10% of, you know, what I'm making from personal training and coaching to, you know, this nonprofit, and, you know, if I do any photo shoots, like being able to donate like 50% of that, and also doing these like yoga sessions and meditation sessions for people to try and help them, but also trying to raise awareness for what's going on in the Philippines. I think it's doable in that way. So I've kind of broken down like all these different ways that I can kind of make money, and then trying to create like a plan in order to do that. Yeah. Right.
Well, what you're doing is very admirable, and it definitely, the fact that I didn't even know about that, and that was a couple weeks ago, just how many other people don't even know over here that even happened in the Philippines. So it speaks a lot to that too. I know the link to that is on your link tree via your Instagram, but we'll make sure that we post a better link closer to the YouTube channel, so it's much easier for people to get to, because it's something that's important. And the fact that nobody even knows about it, you know, if it doesn't get the right celebrity attention, you'd be surprised how much
no one's gonna say,
how many things happen in the world that nobody here we don't even know, we'd be oblivious to. Nobody's fault. It's just we have no way to get the knowledge that that's actually happening.
Definitely.
So that's a great thing there, and it's really impressive that you're doing that, taking time out of your own day to make sure that this, not only the awareness of what happened gets out there too, but taking the leadership role and trying to raise funds to help these people get back on get a semblance of their lives back together, and thinking about the long-term infrastructure about how do we work to prevent this from happening in the future to this level. Like,
Yeah.
that's just so inspiring there. So I'll make sure that we link that to the in the bottom of the episode description.
Appreciate
So
that,
if
brother.
anybody who's listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, there'll be a link in the description. And also, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll make sure we put it in the description there. So make sure you click on that. It'll take you right to his page. And we do what we got to do there. So when's the time frame again?
Yeah, so all throughout January and February, I'll be trying to raise money. So the first one I'm doing is January 15th. That's going to be a yoga and meditation event, and that's going to be at 10 a.m. PST. The reason why I'm doing that one is because that's my mom's death anniversary. So 2007, January 15th was when she passed away. And I just decided that, hey, I don't want this day to be a day about death. I don't want it to be a day about, thinking about like sadness and death. And I want it to be a day that is signified by love and, me trying to serve people and kind of doing that in my mom's name. So I think we all have the choice. We can choose to, see a day as just super sad or see a memory as just super sad. And, we have a choice of making that different. Like, how do we want to remember that? How do we want to remember them, or how do we want to honor them?
No, you're right. That's definitely how it's part of the healing process. When you lose someone like that, it's how each of us do it as our own way. And to be able to honor your mom in this way too, I don't think she could ask for anything better than that. So that's very inspirational. And if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, this episode I'll release on, was it
Monday? I think you said, yeah.
Which is what, 8, 9, that's at the 10th. So
yeah.
I'll have it out on the 10th. So anybody who's listening to this episode the day it releases, you're going to make everything in time. And as much as if I can get some more information from you on where they can go for that yoga session, I'll make sure to post it there as well. And if you're listening to this anytime after February 2022, well, it's still great to hear a story, at least to see what's coming on. So, Joseph, this has been a great conversation, man. Thank you again for coming out. I really appreciate that. This is the time of the episode where I switch everything over to Patreon. So we're going to end this episode now, and we'll spend a little bit of time talking about your photography that you have going on, and also some tips and advice that you can give about fitness, getting your goals that maybe some people maybe aren't hearing from their personal trainers, or maybe aren't understanding in a way that maybe you can speak to a little bit better. So I'll be excited to talk about that. But
yeah. Cool.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a great conversation. I'm glad you were able to explain everything that you've been through. And I know there's a lot more to talk about that I'm sure we can make arrangements for another time down the future to keep that going.
Yeah.
Like the lights are telling me right now. But in the meantime, if they want to reach out to you, what's your Instagram handle? What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, I think the best way to contact me is @_Joseph. The best way to contact me is @_Joseph.Gabriel_ on Instagram. I got a YouTube as well. I got like 32 subscribers. If you want to help me hit 40, you can find me there, Joseph Gabriel Ilustrisimo.
Well, it's amazing how the subscribers go up the more content you put out. So that number is going to increase. So trust me on that one. To everybody who's watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. And if you would like to subscribe and also like the video, that's going to help the channel. That's going to help this video get out to many other people so they can listen to Joseph's story and his inspiration and what he's gone through, because it's very impactful. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast hosting site, we are going to continue the conversation on Patreon. So you just click the link in the description to get access to the bonus content that we're about to film now. So thank you, Joseph, for coming on. Really appreciate that. Everybody have a good one.